I've never felt this safe before. No one could get by you.
Right now might not be too difficult.
What are you doing? Frank?
Rachel, I don't want to get confused about what I'm doing here.
I'm not confused.
You pay me to protect you. That's what I do.
Have I done something wrong?
No. Nothing.
Then what is it? Do you want me to beg?
No.
What's going on, Frank?
I want to keep it straight in my head what job I'm doing.
And what is that exactly? Making me feel like shit?
No. I'm sorry, this is my fault.
Don't apologize, for God's sake. I mean, just tell me what I did. I'm a big girl.
You didn't do anything. It was me. I got involved with my client.
Your client?
I made a mistake.
Your client? So you're not attracted to your client anymore?
Oh, Christ, I told you why. I can't protect you like this.
So that's it for me? That's it?
Yeah.
Well, I don't believe it.
Well, you can live with it or you can fire me.
But I can't fuck you.
Context of White Supremacy. Gus T Renegade. Justice. In for another broadcast. Hopefully to share constructive information on the system of white supremacy. Today's date, Sunday, October 28th, 2012, so I have been told. Before we get started, I was reminded in preparing for this program, which I'm super excited about. I think it will be very constructive. I was reminded of a program that we did about a year ago. I think our guest, and I think you've heard many other folks who've been on the cows, recommend studying white people. Racist suspect Danielle McGuire, white female, she was on the program about a year ago. She authored the book At the Dark End of the Street, Black Women, Rape, and Resistance. She wrote in her book, this is on page 201 of the paperback, she said, on August 29th, 1955, a day after J.W. Millam and Roy Bryant kidnapped Emmett Till, a wealthy white woman named Mrs. Lawrence asked a black female if she would babysit her granddaughter for the day. Ida Mae, as she was known then, frequently did babysitting and domestic work to help her mother, who spent her days ironing white folks' clothes inside their tiny tar paper shack. Since it was Ida Mae's 11th birthday, Mrs. Lawrence promised her $2 and a birthday bonus if she would come by their big plantation-style home later that afternoon. After Ida Mae played with the child for a bit, Mrs. Lawrence summoned her upstairs. Mr. Lawrence wants to see you and wish you a happy birthday, she said. Mrs. Lawrence called her into the bedroom where her husband, a wizened old man, lay beneath crumpled blankets. Mrs. Lawrence tore back the sheets, exposing what Holland called his shriveled old thing, a slimy white penis asleep on his pasty leg. Then she scooped Holland up, placed her on top of the bed, and quickly left the room. The old man reached for Holland, pulled down her shorts and snapped down her panties and began to fondle her. She was terrified. Her mother, she said in her memoir, had repeatedly told her to never allow anyone to touch her down there. Holland screamed and beat her hands against the wall, grabbing and pushing at the same time, looking for something to hold on to. Lawrence asked the child if she was enjoying herself as if she were a grown woman engaged in a consensual act. "No, sir," Holland replied. "It hurts." The rape lasted for what Holland said seemed like a lifetime. "I began to think I was dying," she remembered. When Lawrence finished, he handed Holland a $5 bill and told her to go downstairs. When Holland opened the door and walked out, Mrs. Lawrence looked at her as Holland put it out. Mrs. Lawrence looked at her, as Holland put it, without expression, as if she'd gone somewhere else. But I knew, Holland said, that the white woman knew the bull had thrown me. Holland's experience was a common one for many African American females and women working in white households. Indeed, she suspected the bull had thrown plenty of other girls her age. Through sly innuendo, knowing glances, and telling silences, Holland said she figured about half the girls in Greenwood, Mississippi, maybe even the whole Delta, lived without daddies who knew the score about white men and kept their daughters safe by refusing to let them work in white households. Of those, she estimated that approximately 75% were victims of rape. Folks used to tell how, in the South, no white man wanted to die without having sex with a black woman. Holland said, "It was just seen as part of life, and if you were black, you were always at the mercy of white people. You didn't need to be sitting babies or cleaning houses to fall victim to the white man's lust," she remembered. "We could just as easily be picking cotton or walking to the store or spending money in the white man's store when the mood would take him and he'd take us. Just like that. Like lightning striking." Like Fannie Lou Hamer, Holland understood that black women's bodies did not belong to themselves. They belonged to everyone. I will stop there. I think our guest, she can tell you if that matches up with her research and analysis of what happens in tragic arrangements under racism, white supremacy. So thankful to be doing the program. Joining us for today's broadcast, she is the author of the book, Pieces of a Puzzle, the one thing black females will not talk about. Joining us live, our guest, Miss Reneathia Tate. Miss Tate, are you with us?
Yes, I'm here.
Outstanding. Thank you so much for being willing to share some of your time with us. As I told you, we have quite a few listeners. They are familiar with your brilliant work, and they were super excited to have you on the program, as am I. Just cannot be more thankful. For those who have not yet heard of your work, people, this might be their first time hearing from you. Could you give us just some information about who you are, anything you think would be helpful as we proceed with the discussion?
Well, I wrote a book that took me about 6 years to write, and the subject matter is sex and race. And that was a subject matter that was on my mind while I was in college. I was always interested in the race problem, the race issue. So I was doing research back while I was in college, and then I ran up on a Mr. Neely Fuller, who wrote the book, The United Independent Code System. And that was part of my research, and that's really how my research began. After I started reading his book, I started asking a lot of questions about race and racism. And, of course, there was a chapter in the book that dealt with black females. And that's where I started to at least start the research. My research started based on the fact that there was some information that was already out there saying that black females, there's a subject that we will not talk about, and that subject dealt with white men. And so this is how it all started. Hello?
Yes, ma'am. We will get more details on that as we... Oh, did I interrupt you? Did you have more that you wanted to share? Or?
No.
Okay. We'll get more details on how this came together and what you've been able to conclude from your analysis. For listeners who haven't seen you or don't know much about you, you are a black female. Is that correct?
Oh, yes. I'm a black female, and I went to Howard University, and that's and my research started in Washington, D.C.
Okay. This program, I have unfortunately concluded that we are in a global system of white supremacy racism. I use those two terms as synonyms, same definition for both terms. The definition that I use for white supremacy racism is as follows: a global system of people who classify themselves as white and are dedicated to abusing and or subjugating everyone in the known universe whom they classify as not white. Do you believe that such a system exists, and do you think that's an accurate definition?
Yes, it's an accurate definition. We are under the system of white supremacy. Of course, it's a system that's been operating long before I was born, but it is a system. And under the system of white supremacy, we are victims of racism. That means we are subjugated to white people. We have to do what we are told. Even though it's 2012, everything is just high tech, but racism still exists.
Right on. Very important point to keep in mind anytime there are discussions really about any area of people activity, but especially things that go down in the bedroom. Very important. Keep that in mind. Okay, just get some more background on how this whole topic came together, your book, Pieces of a Puzzle. You write in the book, and I thought this was fascinating because I've heard this before. I was hoping that you could tell them about the phone call that you had with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., where you had been talking with him. You all had been speaking about his book and his views on white supremacy, and there came a point where he asked you a question. Can you go into more detail about that conversation and what transpired?
Yes. He asked the question, have I ever slept with a white man? And at the time that he asked that question, I hung up the phone on him because I had buried the experience in the back of my mind. So when he asked that question, it's just my natural reaction was to hang up. And then after I hung up, I called him back and told him that I had experience with a white man, and he hurt me. And he merely said, I thought so. And so this is how, but this was part of the research too, but that's how I met him. When I met him, he asked that question because it's the one thing that black females will not talk about. I didn't talk about my experience either. I was quiet, but not knowing that I had buried it in the back of my mind. So the experience that we have with white men are sometimes buried. Just like my experience was buried in the back of my mind. Other black females who are not talking about it, it's not an everyday subject that we can just talk about. So it is the one thing that black females will not talk about. And like I said, and that's for many reasons that I found in the research. Most of us have not. I'm not going to say most of us, but we have had experiences that are embarrassing. We had experiences that makes us feel guilty, and we have had experiences that traumatized us that we have buried in our minds.
I know one of. Wow. I know one of the major points, if I read the book accurately, if I understood it correctly, one of your major contentions is that this is something that a lot of black females, non-white females, something that they don't discuss because they're confused, they don't understand racism, white supremacy, they don't understand white people, and the sense of shame and guilt. Thinking that something bad might have happened. I think you say in the book consistently, having been robbed of something, even if you don't quite understand what it is that's been taken, having a sense that you lost something in that sexual encounter with a white person. Is that correct?
That is correct. We have a vague we walk away with a vague notion that we have been raped or robbed. In my experience, I just wanted to forget about it. And when I interviewed with other females, they have said, you are asking me to relive an experience that they don't want to relive again. So they don't talk about it, but that's not the correct thing to do. The thing that we must do is we must talk about it. We must, because it's going to come up, especially if there's any kind of abuse or whatever that took place. You can only bury it for so long. And then those experiences then come back. And when they come back, you got to be ready to deal with that experience. And, you can't keep it in. You have to talk about it. You have to let it out. Okay? That's the way to clear your mind. You clear your mind that way. Just like we have to, when we eat, we have to clear our bodies of our food and our waste. We have to clear our minds the same way. You can't hold stuff in your mind. That you have to let it out and talk about it. I don't know. We also are talking about there's the mental health side of the issue of black females not talking about the experience. And of course, I did say the experience is buried in our minds. And they have us doing things that are very disgusting that you just can't talk about. White men engage in a lot of oral sex with black females. I'm not saying that that was the number one type of sex that they had with non-white females, a lot of oral sex. This was because they don't necessarily want to penetrate black females. They just want to play with us. Okay, a lot of girls in the book will report to you that they didn't even have sex. The white man just had access to them, which is still under white supremacy. It's still a issue of them having access to you and being able to feel on you and all that kind of thing that's going on.
Wow. I hope for listeners, if you consistently tune into the C.O.W.S, and you heard our broadcast this summer around sexual trauma. We were talking specifically about child molestation, the Jerry Sandusky, and what's going on now with the BBC and Jimmy Savile, where they're right now suspecting that there could be 500 victims, children that he raped and molested over years and years and years. It should sound, what you're hearing from Ms. Tate, it should sound very similar to pedophilia and child rape, because that's pretty much what it is when white people are sexually sewering non-white people. It's an adult taking advantage of a child in a confused state. And I think you say that in the book over and over. Is that accurate?
Yes. Under white supremacy, black males and females, we are not, when we compare ourselves to them, to white people, we are functioning on a much lower level. We are children when we compare ourselves to white people. Black people get mad and they don't want to hear me say that or are mad at me about that. But that is something that's something that's missing. And we in a confused state because we don't have truth. Now that's a piece of a truth right there that's hard for us to chuckle down, that we are not men and women. When we compare ourselves or put ourselves up to white people, white men and women, you can tell they're about several layers or, levels over ours. So that's something that we just don't want to, that's a little bit of the truth that we need. but we don't want to deal with that truth. And that's what's missing. You know, I had the needy principle, and that was something that I made up to help black people get a better understanding of how white supremacy operates. It states that we are missing things like truth, justice, and peace, and how we need to compensate for what's missing. One way to compensate, because we are confused, and one way that we can compensate for that confusion is to have truth, to practice truth, to use truth. That's something that would help also heal us, because we have been abused. Again, that's a thing that black females, the reason why we can't talk about it. But that's to the white man's advantage, because the more we don't talk, see, we are the ones that's closer to the children. We are the ones closer to the children. So therefore, if we're not talking to our children, then year after year, generation after generation, our females go into the bed with white men. And things happen where they're not able to talk about it. They have us doing disgusting things that we just can't talk about. And that's how they maintain control over the black population. It's through the females. Because we have the children, and we are closer to the children than the males are. So they cannot have us talking to our males or female children. That's why we keep secrets. But we are abused. This is why we're not talking. I'm still the only one really coming out talking about it, and will talk about my own experience. But it's a subject that just is not talked about enough.
Real important point. I will encourage listeners, if you're out there, if you have questions, comments, if you want more details, definitely dial in. The number to dial is 760-569-7676, and the code is 564-943#. Press *6 if you have questions. I just wanted to go back, just get a few more thoughts. You talked about, I think, real important point. It's not the coolest point. You're not going to get a standing ovation going to black people and saying that we are children in relationship to white people, that white people are the men and women on this planet. That is not something that a lot of black people want to hear. And I thought this was an important point you raised in the book. You said that white people will encourage that myth. White people will encourage us to pretend and lie to ourselves and say, oh yeah, I'm a man, I'm a strong black man, I'm a strong black woman, you're not going to tell me I'm a child. Can you just talk about that and how that weakens us? And if you can think of some of the ways that white people do push us into thinking that we're men and women.
Well, yes, we are taught to lie to ourselves. Again, we need truth in order to come out of this confused state. But if we are honest with ourselves, we would admit what I just said, how white people they are levels over us. When we talk to them, we can tell the difference, but we don't want to admit that. But see, that's the truth, though. That is the truth. And it's something that we just can't take it, but that is the way we start healing. The healing process starts when we start saying, okay, even though society causes us or influences us to tell lies, we're gonna set up our own values. We're not gonna lie. We're gonna stick with the truth. Okay, we're gonna get away from the TV. Okay, because that's the programming device that they use. If they ever want black people to do something, all they have to do is put Ellen DeGenerate on television, and then all the females want to dress up like males like Ellen. So this is how they influence us with the television, and we use the TV to raise our children. We put our children in front of that television. Okay, and then so they know this, so they program us. So we walking around confused, confused about everything. Now you see us being confused about our sexuality. You know, so we need our own value system. And the one way to start having that is if we at least say we're going to speak the truth to ourselves, or we're going to admit the truth to ourselves. At least start there.
Context of White Supremacy. Again, our guest, Miss Reneathia Tate. You touched on this, and this is in the Word Guide. I'm not sure it's in the code book. It might be. I need to look back at it, but I definitely know it's in the Word Guide from Mr. Fuller. That word kinky, where he talks about being cautious about using that term, that white people have associated kinky with black people's hair, and then they've associated with all sorts of experimental sex and doing all sorts of strange things in bed, and it's no coincidence that you have an association between those two things in the language, the way that they have coded the use of words. I thought this was a super important point that you raised in the book. One of the reasons that racists are able to exploit us sexually and to do all of these deviant, nasty, disgusting, quote-unquote kinky things is because as victims, we are afraid to say no to white people, even in the bedroom. Can you expound on that?
Yeah, we are. Well, let's say some of the people I interviewed were some young. I'm talking about the young population of black people mainly because that's who my interviews were with. And I interviewed one young lady who I call Miss Survival. And she was having sex, well, not necessarily having sex, because a lot of times we find out that they wasn't really having sex, but she was involved with the white man for survival reasons. She had children, and she was on public assistance, and so she was involved with a white man for financial reasons for her children. So that's a weakness that we might have. Okay, and then I interviewed, well, one of the things I wanted to mention, too, because we talked about the kinky sex, the thing I wanted to mention to get an understanding of that is that we think according to the interviews in the book, the white men do not have so-called kinky sex with white women. Okay? White women have kinky sex with black men. And they have kinky sex, and white men have kinky sex with us. But when it comes to them having sex with each other, they not participating in that because the white men basically said to me, white women are boring in bed. So they rather to be with a black female, it's exciting. But they use that as brownie points so that we will probably get, they thought I wanted to hear that as brownie points for the black woman, But in actuality, this is why they like black women, because we have all that. They play with us in bed. But when it comes down to having that real sex or sexual intercourse, they say that for white women. Many of them don't even want to penetrate a black female. They rather have the oral sex because if the more they have sex with us, the more they can sex themselves off the planet.
Wow.
So they play with black people in the bedroom. But see, a lot of the playing that they do causes a mental effect. It's traumatizing. They study the mind. They know how the mind operates. So they know that sex thing, and if they have us doing something filthy, we're not going to talk about it. They maintain control over the next generation. We are the open back door into which the racist man, according to the code, parades his cycle of racism. Racism, white supremacy, is a cycle. that it goes on from generation to generation. I think the story went with Pocahontas the same way. John Ray took over the Indian tribe through Pocahontas. He got Pocahontas to do something disgusting, or maybe it was a rape, or all of the above, and then she wasn't able to talk to her children. See, white people teach their children to practice racism at an early age. So about the time they get involved with us, you know, and most of us, they hit us when we are young, 24, 23, when we don't know nothing. We're the most vulnerable state at that age. We don't know nothing. Because nobody black is passing down information. My mother didn't pass information down. So we're not passing information, and we're not talking about this white men thing with our girlfriends. Is this a silent subject?
That the point, and you touched on it a couple times, and I totally agree in terms of having sex with someone, being specific. White people having sex with non-white people, victims of racism, is one of the most effective, intimate ways that white people maintain control over non-white people. And I don't think most non-white people understand that. Even when there is not penetration, penis doesn't get to the vagina, even when it's just sexual play, so-called oral sex, that sort of thing, even that has a big impact on the mind. You talked in the book some of the examples where these black females, they weren't having sex with a white person, but some of them they said that they would have been willing to do so, even though they didn't. They would have been willing. Some of them, it sounded like they were even hurt because that didn't happen. Just can you talk about how that impacts the mind even when there isn't penetration? Yeah,
just like, for instance, if you look at oral sex, you know, I think I did a little study. I had an interview in the book where I had talked about just the mere fact of licking on the female, okay? You can be licked into confusion. And then, you know, withholding the penis, licking the female, then but not giving her the penis. After a while, I talked about the vagina becoming moist and ready for something, ready for the penis, but then you just keep on licking. That can lick you into confusion. You become mentally confused as to why you're not getting the penis, and they just steady licking, and they not giving you the penis. You can become confused or licked into being a lesbian. Lick right into that because you're confused. You know, you don't know. You're innocent. Black people are innocent before we have sex with white people. We are basically innocent. By the time we finish, or white people finish with us, we done did some of everything. But basically the black male is innocent and the black female is innocent. But sex can have a terrible mental effect on us. You have to be careful about who you in bed with. The code says, and my book says, we are not to have sex with white people as long as racism exists. Racism meaning white supremacy. As long as they're in charge. We are not to have no type of oral sex, no type of sex. No sex play. As long as white supremacy exists. They should not be having fun with us. So that's what they do. They have fun with us. But when they get with each other, it's about the business of creating white offsprings. But when they come to us, it's about messing up our minds, making us confused, keeping us quiet. And the things that so that we will walk away and not talk about nothing.
Make sure I get my co-host Justice, she's here, get some of her questions, and listeners as well. Wanted to ask one more. that I think is real important, and it goes back to how does a man function? How does a woman function? What does it mean to be a man? What does it mean to be a woman? You talk in the book this issue of control and how the white supremacy operates in the bedroom. White women, white men, they have a code. And some of your interviews, when you were talking about some of these black males who were being raped by white women, they would say that the white women told them, we're not doing anal sex. They would make that clear up front, or we're not doing the kissing. Whatever rules, whatever code they had established for how they were going to function in the bedroom, how they were going to practice racism in the bedroom, they already had that together. Non-white people, victims of racism, we don't have those boundaries set up, a value system that you talked about with regards to this is what I will do, this is what I will not do, and sticking to that. And racists know that, and they exploit that in all 9 areas of activity, especially number 8, the bedroom. Can you touch on that?
Yeah, the values, because that's basically when we talked about we follow behind white people. That's when I talked about the television. We don't have our own value system. We follow them. Whatever they do, we do. So we are, and then if we have some kind of value system, it's weak. Okay, I think I remember I talked about in chapter 1, I didn't really know when to have sex. My body told me, of course, when to have sex in that terms, but who to have sex with, and how should I pick the person who I'm going to have sex with? Find somebody you love, or wait till you love somebody, or whatever. What does love mean? So I was with my girlfriends trying to figure out things. We're trying to have a value system, but we just don't have one because we under white supremacy. They teach us what we know. They teach us what they want us to know. And all they have to do is if they want us to go along with something, all they have to do is put it on television, put it in a sex video, okay, and then we'll go along with it. We maybe have to put a nice little name on it, but then we'll go along with it because we don't have our own value system. That's why the code was developed, so that we can begin to have our own system. And we have to watch the words that's been used, a lot of words. Racism is practiced in the words. We can't hardly communicate with one another, okay? So it's a big communication problem. But racism is mainly practiced in the words. And I talked about that in a couple of the chapters and stuff. Oral sex, all stuff has to be defined.
Definitions, terms, very important, extremely important. Justice, if you have some questions you would like to ask Ms. Tate, we will open your line up. Let's see here. Should be ready to roll. Justice, if you have some questions, please proceed.
Can I be heard?
Yes, ma'am.
Greetings, Ms. Tate. How are you doing today?
Thank you, I'm fine.
I heard you say that you've had sexual intercourse with a white person, a white male, and that he hurt you. How did he hurt you?
Well, I talked about that in chapter 1. It was a forceful sex. The force did not take place until the penis actually went inside me. That's when the force was there. But before then, everything was okay. I mean, the force didn't begin until the penis was applied. So, do you kind of understand that?
Yes.
Okay.
How did you start learning about racism, white supremacy?
I was already interested in that when I went to college. So that was one of my main focus when I went to college. I wanted to find out about racism. I knew it I didn't know what it was. I just wanted to find out why white people was angry with us. And in some cases I said me, but mainly I noticed that it was not just me. What was the problem with white people had with us? So that was my quest. And then that led me to do a lot of research. And then that's how I ran into Neely Fuller, who, when I got to him, I was asking so many questions that he just sent me a book. Okay? So we were supposed to meet each other because at that point I found out that the area that was the second area under white supremacy, this sex thing, was the main hole, that the thrust that they had on us, this sex. And if I wasn't talking about my experience, see, I didn't talk about mine, as I explained before. I didn't talk about my experience because I buried it. And then when it started surfacing, I had a boil underneath my arm. And I think I talk about that in chapter 1. And I said that I didn't want to be penetrated by the needle. See, that's the mental effect that a rape can have. I was raped. But it was hard for me. It wasn't a rape that I could really define as a rape. I had to get the code. I had to it was very indirect. We are dealing with some smart people that know how to do things. Okay? So we walk away with the vague notion. All I could say at the time, I didn't even know how to talk. I didn't even know how to describe it. The code gave me the words to use. All I could say is baby words like it hurted. That's all I could say. I couldn't describe it as a rape. All I could say is that it hurted. But not until I got the code that gave me some words to use to be able to describe what was happening to me. We couldn't even describe it. I couldn't describe. All I could say was it hurt. And that's not a good word to use because some people like that type of sex, So that's not a good word to use. Are you there?
Yes. Yeah.
Hello?
Hello? Can I be heard?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Do you function differently when you're around white people than when you are around black people? If so, how different?
No, I don't function differently. But mainly the code tell us that we are, and I also wrote that we are not supposed to, because in the reality that we might not be men and women, we are not supposed to act like children, but we should carry ourselves like students, asking questions, because they ask us questions. So we need to get in the habit of asking white people questions. Now, they're good at it now. They're very good at it. But that's what I did when I did these interviews. I asked questions. I stayed over the phone. I did not get with any of the white men I interviewed in the book. I stayed on the phone, and I used hard communications, very direct questions, and I didn't go along with everything. Okay? So we are supposed to carry ourselves as students using hard communications, asking questions when we are with white people. We can learn a whole lot. But I just say, remember that they are very good at this. They know how to avoid questions. They know how to give you non-answers. But even a non-answer is still an answer.
In the system of racism, white supremacy, do you think all non-white people should be suspicious of all white people?
Yes. Always be suspicious. Because, see, this thing of racism, ain't nobody, nobody standing out white. No white person is standing out trying to end it. They're going along with it. So, yes, we are to ask questions. We be suspicious, but you can be suspicious, but you're supposed to ask questions. Okay? We're dealing with some people that are very much smarter than us. So, yes, we are to ask questions.
How do you think black people can get unconfused about having a sexual relationship with white people?
How we can get unconfused?
Yes.
Well, first we have to use truth to realize that we are children going to bed with men and women. Now that right there should stop a whole lot. Right there. I'm a child and I'm going to bed with an adult. Okay? Even though he's my age, okay? But I am a child compared to him going to bed with an adult. And there's a lot of things I don't know. So I want to talk to him over the telephone and ask him questions. What you think about black women? Or use the book, pieces of a puzzle. Use the book and let that be your guide. Ask questions over the phone so you can know what your objective. You got to find out what his objective is. And I'm not saying, see, racism can be, they practice racism in a much soothing way. Where that you'll be their friends, that you like them, they won't even hurt you. But it still doesn't mean racism exists, and it still don't mean that your mind might not be there. We are weak-minded, so we have to be careful. We have to be careful who we go to bed with, because all that plays on the mind.
Why is one of the subjects that you study white males raping black females?
Why was that one of the subjects that I studied?
Yes.
See, I didn't really start off studying that subject. I started off studying racism, white supremacy. But then it was broken down into 9 areas of people activity. And when it was broken down, sex is the second most powerful area. That had something to do with me. I'm a black female. So as I studied and learned out that I, a black female, played a part in this, I didn't want to play a part in it. Okay? But I found out that I played a part in it. And that other black females played a part. Not just me, I'm just one. That other black females played a part in it too. So I went down while in college, I pulled out my survey. And when the movie was on, The Bodyguard, I went over there and I asked questions. After the people came out of the movie theater, I asked the females how they enjoyed the movie. Have they ever been with a black man or been with a white man? And so some of them said yes, some of them said no. And then I was able to get the ones that said yes. I told them I wanted them to participate in a study that I'm doing to write a book. So, again, I went to school to try to solve a problem. And when you step off in there, you try to start a problem, and I asked the question, why? And when I asked that question, I met Mr. Fuller. I started research. That was a very important question that I asked. why white people don't like us. Okay? So then there was white people that come off to you that's very kind, but it still doesn't mean that racism exists. They can be very sweet to black people, but it doesn't mean that racism doesn't exist. See, they want you to be comfortable with this race thing, the way they want you to be comfortable with the way the things are. Okay, they can't have it where you're not comfortable. So they give you money, they give you whatever you need. Plus, they like for you to come to them and ask them for help, but not too many of us. All right?
Okay. Thank you. I do have some more questions, but I'm going to let Gus and the listeners get some in. Thank you. Gus, go ahead.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Context of White Supremacy. I'll give out the number really quick. The number to dial is 760-569-7676, and the code is 564-943#. Press star 6 if you have questions. I wanted to read. This is real important section of the book. This is on page 348. I want to share this, and then we'll get Ms. Tate's commentary. This is her writing about the victim of racism, white supremacy, her brother. He's referenced in this book with, she uses the pseudonym The Bat, B-A-T. And I'm picking up on page 348. And again, she does dedicate this book to her brother. He has transitioned. So I'm picking up on 348. Ms. Tate, she writes, based on codified logic, what was said and what was not said, Miss Powerful, white woman, the white woman who is in the middle setting up this whole incident, she set the stage for the bat to kill another black male. And to come to this conclusion, all I had to do was ask questions and listen to what my brother was saying. The bat was not able to hold down a job, and of course he would drink, but not as often. Somewhere between his unemployment years, he met this white woman, Miss Powerful. She either told him or somehow made him believe that she would make money for him, and that all he had to do was watch her non-white offspring. As said before, Miss Powerful was functioning as a prostitute. I guess my brother considered himself her pimp and or protector. Meanwhile, Miss Powerful was still involved with Mr. Husky, who most likely was her former pimp. Mr. Husky is a black male. So at the time when the bat traveled 50 miles away from his hometown, he was unemployed and did not have any means, a car, or real reason to go there. All of his friends and family resided in the big city and the surrounding suburbs. It is my theory that the white woman told Mr. Husky, black male, about my brother in advance because Mr. Husky came to them wherever they were. And when Mr. Husky came and busted down the door, he most likely had a gun with him and was going to kill the bat in his jealous rage. Why else was it labeled self-defense? And of course, Mr. Husky, under the influence of sex, wanted to protect this white woman, Miss Powerful, from the bat. I then asked, how did the gun get into the bat's possession? In my opinion, the gun was either already brought to the crime scene by this white woman, or the gun was already at the house or hotel where the incident took place. You see, there is reason to believe that the bat did not have any plans on killing this black male beforehand. Why? because after the incident was over and when truth was revealed about what my brother had done, he had a nervous breakdown, realizing that he was somehow tricked or deceived into killing another black male. And this weight in on his conscience, he was very remorseful for the black male he killed. Furthermore, when the bat was dealing with Miss Powerful, the white woman, he still maintained residence with us, his so-called family, and there was no gun around the house. So there were many things going on that my brother was not aware of. He was not a criminal. He had never been involved with any police, nor did he have a police record. The bat did not own a gun or had one registered in his name as property. It must be clearly understood that it is the racist white men and women who made the guns and made it possible for their victims to own guns. Racist white people are also responsible for the selling of guns to black people all over this planet. Black people do not create guns. So the racist white supremacists are directly or indirectly responsible for black people having guns. I was told that the scene of the crime was Miss Powerful's non-white offspring. I then kept asking, why would she bring the non-white offspring with her at the scene of the crime? I am still puzzled by this. However, to the extent that a racist has anything to do with it, it is only to cause more confusion and or abuse of non-white people, even their own non-white offspring. Later, after that incident, Miss Powerful abandoned her non-white offspring with us and never returned. I then asked myself why this was done. Miss Powerful's non-white offspring saw my brother kill her alleged father, Mr. Husky. So I could imagine what effect this had on my brother. Every time he looked into the non-white offspring's eyes, it reminded him of what he had done. At that time, the non-white offspring was 8 years old. The bat would always talk about this white woman even when he was on his deathbed. The bat never really stopped talking about the incident or the white woman. Therefore, I could not help but to write about this story. Likewise, it was not hard to put the two things, his killing a black male and his abuse of alcohol, together. This white woman set the stage that caused the bat to suffer much mental pain for many years before he died. Now, I truly believe that this white woman abandoned her non-white offspring with us and the bat for many reasons, but mainly it was to remind my brother each and every day of what he had done. I truly believe this was done to cause further mental torment for the bat. Even though he said that he was glad that his family unit was willing to raise the non-white offspring. The bat was told to stop drinking, but he never did. He wanted to run away from the pain of what he had done, so he kept on drinking. You see, the racist white men and women teach black people to hold the pain inside. They do not teach black people how to deal with the pain they have imposed on them. Instead, they teach black people to escape the pain with alcohol and or drugs. They teach black males not to cry, or if they cry, they would be considered a punk or boy. The bat was in a whole lot of unnecessary mental pain. So in September 1994, God released my brother from that pain that lasted 19 years. But he left many people behind, and I am one of them. So I rise, and I claim the end of this nightmare. The nightmare of white supremacy racism for me, my brothers, sisters, and all of my people. My brother blamed himself when in truth it was not his fault. He and the other black male were two victims that this white woman, Miss Powerful, destroyed under the influence of sex. Finally, it is also my opinion, which is based on codified logic and my understanding of racism, that the white woman wanted Mr. Husky dead because he often beat her up and or abused her, and she wanted him to pay for this. But you see, she had a choice. She was not programmed at age 5 into desiring black boys. So she wanted this black male dead, but was too coward to do it directly herself. So she set the stage where the bat could kill another black male in self-defense. It is important to understand the racist white men and women operate against their victims in very indirect manner. They are too cowardly to directly attack their victims, all non-white people. My brother on his deathbed still would talk about the white woman. He said, "A white woman is tough." I saw her cash a check with her social security card. The bat was describing what he saw, and what he saw was the strong support system out there for racist white men and women. Even the white woman was a prostitute or a poor white trash person. White supremacy is designed to support all white people, and the so-called poor white people are heavily involved in the practice of white supremacy. The traumatic effect the white woman had on the bat lasted 19 years after the death of Mr. Husky. It was the white woman who was responsible for the death of these black males, Mr. Husky and my brother. And to this day, I can count the number of dead bodies left in her trail. I know that there were at least 3 black males who were involved with this white woman that are now dead. The white woman attended my brother's funeral, and I saw her with another young black male who was walking around as if he was her new protector. He carried himself as her bodyguard. So Miss Powerful is moving right along to the next black victim who will fall under her sexual influence. It is business as usual, the business of destroying black people. And this is how she carries herself walking around the city. Reneathia Tate, Pieces of a Puzzle. Just want to recognize and thank again Miss Tate for sharing. Very traumatic experience. Just gratitude for sharing something that I know had to be a challenge to put down on pen and pad. Do you want to share any thoughts about this incident?
No, I think you said enough. You said it all.
Right on. One of the worst things that can happen to a non-white person: sexual intercourse with a white person. Before I hit the phone lines to take questions, there's a this is on page 119, moving back in the book, where you write, the code states in terms of numbers, the number of black females in bed with white men is much higher than the numbers of black males in the bed with white women. This was another reason why this research began. I found it was true because many white men prefer to keep their sexual activity with black females behind closed doors. I shared this with some of our listeners yesterday, and it sparked a really interesting exchange. Listeners wanted to know, number one, how did you come to that conclusion? Why is this information important? And how will this information, if it is true, how will knowing this, talking about this, help us replace white supremacy with justice?
Okay. The first question is why, how did I come to this?
Correct. Yes,
the numbers of black females in bed with white men is much higher than the males and white women. Well, one thing there are more black females on the planet than it is black males. That's one way. And across the planet, if you remember, I think in my book I had interviewed an African female who had sexual intercourse or was involved sexually with a white man. So that gave me some insight to it of how global this thing is. So it's happening to non-white females, not just black females. We are all non-white, but I'm talking about Asians. Nobody is talking about this subject. The Asians are not talking about it, sex with white men. But they are not. We are all considered non-white. People of color considered non-white. So no one is talking about it. I'm still just about basically the only one that's really coming out and talking about it and talking about my experience. So I look at it that way. I determined that there are more black women on the planet than there is black males on the planet. Okay, so that's one way I looked at that when I stated that. What was the next question?
What is the value of this information? I think some people thought that it might be talking bad or talking down about black females, and because this has happened, what is the value of this, and isn't this just another way of blaming or picking on black females, non-white females?
Again, as I said before, black females are the teachers. We are the closer to the children. We are closer to the children than the males are. The males are close too, but we are a little closer. They hang on to us a little longer. We are the teachers. So the white man decided to keep black females quiet. So they have us engaging in things that are very disgusting, very embarrassing, so that we will not talk. Who are we supposed to talk to? We won't talk to our children about the experience. But the book is here now. Pieces of a puzzle is written. So every young person that can at least read should have pieces of a puzzle. Because I'm talking about it. So if we don't want to talk, we can at least tell them to read, tell our children to read. We want to end white supremacy, racism. And it's going to be ended through the females. That's the only way, because that's the hold that they have. Now, I'm not saying it's going to end overnight. It's going to take some time because we've been abused. But at least I was able to get 15 black females to talk. And from that 15 black females, that's a mirror. It's a good representative sample. So those are 15 mirrors that we can hang up in the wall, and that when every black female that read it, so I'm talking about the ones who's been around a while, we will see ourselves, and among those 15 black females, we'll see ourselves. One of those stories is going to remind us of ourselves. So it's a good representative sample, a good way to start. The book is written. The females have spoken. They told you what to expect. We got a chance to see exactly what happened with them. These were young females at the time. So we have a picture. We have everything in front of us now. No longer should this, we no longer should racism exist. It's slowly be coming to an end because I'm talking about it.
And the last one, if your theory on this is correct, how does broadcasting that information, if it is accurate, how does broadcasting that, how will that help us replace white supremacy with justice?
We start with ourselves. White supremacy starts with us. It starts with the individual. White supremacy is so embedded in us. So we start on our own. We start with the truth. We practice the truth, and we use truth ourselves to do the best we can. Of course, we do need white people to produce justice, but we start with ourselves and saying that I'm going to speak truth to myself. I'm going to stop lying, although it's required to get many things that we need. I'm going to do the best I can to tell the truth at all times. The truth then gives us therapy. Okay, yes, the truth hurts. And this is a reason why a lot of black females don't even want to read the book, because it's painful. And I'm asking them to relive that pain. But that's the only way we're going to get out of this thing. We're not going. The pain is not that so bad. We're not going to make it. The book has been written. I went through a lot of pain, and I'm still here. So it's no excuse. No longer should we should not have, as long as racism exists, no black male or female should be in bed with white people. Okay? We should be conducting ourselves as students and asking questions and writing things down. We should be paying close attention to the words that is being used. Ask what it means. Ask questions. See, they teach us not to ask questions because they make us feel like we're stupid if we ask questions. Okay? Really, that's how they did it. That's how they became so supreme, too. They asked so many questions. Okay, and they still ask a lot of questions to this day. So I'm saying we can do the same thing. We can ask a lot of questions. And mainly, racism ends when we stop doing a lot of things, stop having sex. We need to stop doing a lot of stuff. Stop watching a lot of television unless you learn how to watch it. So racism ends when we make up our minds that we're not going to go along with it no more. I'm going to do something different. I'm not going along with this. Because they're not making us go to bed with them. They seducing us, but they're not making us, and they're very deceitful. In my case, the guy was very deceitful with me. He used a lot of deceit. But in turn, I walked away with the mental problem,
Context of White Supremacy. We have folks that dialed in, and Justice, she has some other questions as well. I want to pick up some of the listeners' questions, and then we'll get Justice's additional questions as well. I know S. I saw your hand first. The only reason I'm breaching protocol is because the person who is most responsible for us being able to do this program would be Pam. She worked tirelessly for years, and I mean years. We were working trying to find Miss Tate to get her on the program. She found pieces of a puzzle, and both of us were just like, oh man, this is incredible. We need to get this information out. And she really stayed on the grind. She was relentless in just looking, trying to find as much information as she could. And so I want to make sure that she has time to ask questions and comment. And she is one of the few non-white people who is also talking about this. She has also seen what a tragedy it is for non-white people to be sexually involved with white people. She also has written a book on this subject, The Interracial Con Game, and she references your work in her publication on this same subject matter. Pam, your line should be open. Good to hear from you. Thank you for all your work in making the program happy. I hope making the program happen. I hope it was worthy of all your hard work.
Oh, good evening, Gus, Miss Tate, Justice. Absolutely. I was super excited when I found out you were going to be on the program. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you for writing that book. I'll make it real quick because I know other people want to ask you questions. You said that there are more black women on the planet, which I would take to, I would extend that to say there are probably more black women in the United States than black men. The thing I'm concerned about is the media, and you're absolutely right when you say we get a lot of our thinking and direction from the television. I'm concerned because the media over the last couple of years has played on that fear of black women, that there's a shortage of black men, that black men don't want us. You know, they show this imagery of black men with white women, which is one of the reasons I think a lot of us assumed that black men were more sexually engaged with white women than black women with white men because of the imagery. I personally don't know how I feel about the numbers, but my opinion isn't really that important in this case. I just wanted your ideas about when they play on the fears of black women, they're pushing black women into the beds of white men as sexual playthings with all this media hype about finding a white man moving up. What did they say one time was don't date down, date up or something. You know, a lot of this image, a lot of this media hype trying to push black women toward white men to be sexually stewarded again, as we've been over the last 400 years. Do you have any ideas on how we can get more black women to understand the dangers of interracial sex? I'd be totally happy to help you promote your book. I know it's on Amazon. So anything that I can do that would help you promote your book or display. Any ideas, any suggestions you have? Any thoughts?
Well, I say, I think black females the code tell us that, because the young black females, as interviewed in the book, were getting involved with white men because they were having financial challenges. So I think that the code tell us that we should ask white people for what we need. Mm-hmm. Okay, you talked about the media pushing us into that fear. So some of us are involved with white men because of the money, because we got kids and we are out there with these children and we're trying to survive. So I think that we need to ask white people, just ask them. We are to ask them for what we need. But that doesn't mean we're supposed to go to bed with them or let them touch on us. But we are supposed to ask them for what we need. Because they are the ones in charge. They are responsible. Okay? All right? I'm not saying they're going to tell you yes, but usually they have to provide. So they provide jobs for us to go to. But what I'm saying is do everything you can do before you go to bed. And what was the other question?
I'm sorry, I know I threw a lot of hodgepodge at you. I was just would love to encourage more people to read your book, and I was wondering, is there anything that I can do to help promote your book? I do have a website, because I know it's on Amazon. And
yes, it is on Amazon and Craigslist. But when you go to Craigslist, you have to put my state of Michigan in there, and then my name, or definitely have to put my name in there. But it's on Craigslist also.
Had you considered ebooks?
Yes. I'm working with a lady now that's helping me out with that now.
Okay, great. Okay, I just wanted to let you know that if there's anything that I can do, just let me know. Gus has my email, because I think it's super important that black women, you're right, we are the ones closest to the children. If we can't wrap our heads around it, our children are just going to suffer and repeat our mistakes.
We are to teach our children. We are to teach. If we can encourage people to read more, our children to read, get them away from that TV and get them reading, especially the young females, because they can read my story. I was a young female, and when I wrote that story, so we can find out. We trying to find out what to do. The thing that we're supposed to be doing is talking to our children. That's who they after. They're after the young generation. Mm-hmm. That's where it started. I started when my experience with a white man. My experience started when I was about 24 years old. Okay, so they really pry on the young people. So we have them coming away from the TV. If we can get them their e-book or somehow read, we can get information.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But I'm glad, it sounds like the young people are asking questions. And that's important, too.
Okay, thank you very much for answering my question. I'll get off I'll mute my line.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
S. Dot, if you have some questions for Ms. Tate, your line should be open. S. Dot, thank you for being patient, sir.
Good evening. Can I be heard?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Thank you for the guest, Ms. Tate. I'm actually looking forward to getting your book. First question I have is this. I have also studied this phenomenon of non-white people, or more specifically black people, sexually sewering themselves, engaging into sexual misbehavior with white people. And a few years ago, I looked at a movie, Something New, which starred Sanaa Lathan, and I noticed even in the title, when they called the movie Something New, it appears that this new agenda that they're pushing is for black women or black females to engage in sexual misconduct with white males, and they've been very aggressive with it for the last few years. Every time you turn around, there's a movie with a black female paired with a white male action star or love interest in the movie. These are very prominent images and music and so forth. And seeing that this is so rampant, I wanted to know what are some of your suggestions and how we can combat a lot of this disinformation that is being put out here, particularly to a lot of black females who now they're susceptible, they're victims just as we're victims, but many of them have spent their lifetimes of being poisoned against their black male counterparts and seeing white males as their saviors. So what is it that we can do to help them and support them in dealing with the situation?
Well, as I said before, it's the television that does the programming. If they want us to do something, they put it on TV, put it in a video. And this is how they program us. I say we need to at least spend some time learning. We need to read more. That's the best way I can say it. We need to read those books on racism. When the child or the person comes with a problem, but we got to know what racism is. We can identify it. When they come to us with a problem, that we can identify what racism is, so we all need to be studying. Because that's how they took us over. They asked a lot of questions. Okay, so we're supposed to be asking questions, carrying ourselves like students, and coming away from that television, because that's the programming. That's the tool that they use to program us, to get us to do things. I mean, I'm not saying that we need to come away from it altogether, because there's some things that we do need to watch TV on, but we got to limit it, okay? And we need to do reading, okay? And we need to be able to identify racism so that when our children come to us with a race problem, that we are able to jump on that problem, and get it, and get a understanding of what's going on. So that's the best I can say for now. Need to read. Because there's books out there.
I have one additional question, because I know you've researched this. In my research, speaking to black females, some of the misconduct that I've heard about when they engage in intercourse with white males is that there's a lot of S&M bondage, tying up and whipping and dehumanizing sexual acts, as well as white males wanting to wear black condoms while engaging in sex with black females. Can you describe some of these sexual acts that you've heard about? Because I think that that's more beneficial to some individuals who don't know specifically what behavior we're talking about.
Okay. Well, any white people, and racist white people, should I say, they like to engage in experimental sex with black people. That means get us to do anything and everything, things that's not even classified as sex, like the golden shower. Of course, I wrote about that in the book. That's not a sex act. That's something to demean you and degrade you. It's very degrading. That's something that you're not going to talk to nobody about. So those, I'm saying that it happens, and it is happening, and it has happened. And I'm saying that those are not sex acts, that's not sex. It's experimental sex. But it's done to shut you down, to shut the black female down, to keep her mouth closed. Okay? And they do not intend on our children learning anything about this. This is why they do things behind closed doors. They don't want nobody knowing what's going on with that black female and that white man in that bedroom. They don't want nobody to know. They don't even want her to know. Okay? So that's why this is why they're able to keep this race thing going. Because black females are abused, and they continue to be abused, sexually exploited. Are you with me?
Yes,
Anybody
ma'am.
with me? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Did I help you out there, or do you need more?
No, it was helpful and beneficial. I just think that it's important that we oftentimes, unfortunately, because of the way that things are right now, people are so apathetic, black people specifically. I think that we oftentimes have to talk about the grotesque, graphic acts that we're actually talking about so that people become aware of them, because I think that there's this misconception with a lot of black victims that we're just talking about sex amongst people who just happen to have a different pigmentation in their skin. And for many of the black females that I know who have engaged in sexual misconduct with white males, some of the horror stories that they tell me are so horrendous that I can't understand why more black females are unaware of some of the things that these white males want them to engage in.
Well, you got to remember that they are messing with a population of young females who don't have a clue. The innocence. They like to destroy the innocence of the black male and female. We don't have a clue of what's going on because nobody is talking about it. So they want those innocent ones, those young black females that don't know nothing. Okay? This is why they don't want black females to tell their children anything. They don't have a clue. They want you ignorant. Okay? And by us not talking, and I'm saying the reason why we're not talking is because there's a lot of mental trauma associated with that. But the book has been written. It is, yes, it can be painful. A lot of females don't want to read the book because it's painful. Okay? But you still have to deal with the truth. The truth is the therapy that we need to heal ourselves. We can heal ourselves, but we need truth. The truth is the therapy that we need. Okay? So it's a lot going on here as to why black females are not talking about it. But we're not going to heal. And we would just go to drugs. It'll never end. Because that mental stuff is meant to come back up in your mind. And we got to know how to deal with that. But again, it is happening with the young generation of people, black people. It's the young that they go after. And the older ones that's not wise. Okay, but it's the young people who don't know nothing. Okay?
Thank you.
All right.
Good to hear from you, S. Bay Area caller, 0416, your line should be open. 0416, your line should be open.
Yeah, can you hear me well?
Dr. Trav,
yes.
Great to hear from you.
Yeah, I kind of got a question, but it may seem, I don't know, belligerent. I don't know. I'm listening, and I'm seeing you guys are talking about true episodes, or true stories of sex with racist white people lead to mental illness for the victim, right? I'm thinking about the story that you did, Turner Diaries, where it was science fiction, but in that story where the white man wrote about many, many cases of black men raping white women, and we know that in the past, white women usually lie about black men raping them. I'm trying to I'm thinking of some sort of, or does the caller or the guest have any thoughts about the science fiction of white people talking about rapes of white women that are not true, and versus the actual stories that you have in your book? Because the stories that you have in your book sound like exactly what white people fear is going to happen to them in the future, per these science fiction novels that they have, like the Turner Diaries. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's...
Well, white people, I'm not saying now because, white supremacy racism is in an automatic pilot position. But at one time, they was fearing black genetic annihilation. Okay? This is why they had to take over and take control of the sex. This is why they play with black females and males in bed. They have experimental sex. Remember, we can sex them off the planet. That's not our intentions. Okay? Because they need us just like we need them. All we are contending is that as long as racism exists, no black people should be in bed with white people. Let them end white supremacy racism and replace it with justice. Then we can go about having sex with them. But as long as this race thing is going on, no sex. But there was, some time ago, was written about in the code about black genetic annihilation. And that has to do with we having the stronger genes. And that we can sex them off the planet. And this is probably why they came up. They had to control the second most powerful area in the planet, and that's the sex area. They had to take control of that. okay, because of this genetic annihilation. I don't know if that answers the question or not, but that was just made me think about that, genetic annihilation and everything like that, as to why they took control of the sex and have us doing a whole bunch of stuff that ain't even sex. But if we stop the sex, we can start healing ourselves. We got to get out of the bed so that we can heal ourselves mentally. We are not going to heal if we keep having sex with white people. We are not going to heal. Is that helpful in any, or do you need some more?
Well, no, it helps because my question is more just what were your thoughts about that. So I wasn't looking for any specific answers. It was just that I saw a correlation between real stories that you're talking about and the science fiction of what these white writers, these racist white writers are writing about. And it's like, it was almost like projection is what I'm hearing. They're writing about, we want to rape these women. And, you know, I'm not thinking about a white woman, but they're definitely thinking about black women or, you know, victims. And it just seems...
Right. They definitely did. They think about us all the time. See, they know their program will be over when we stop lying to ourselves. They know their time is up. But even the fact that some black female is talking about this sex thing, they know their time is coming to a close, too. It is coming to a close because the more I talk about it, the more other black females will talk about it. That's how it goes.
Yeah, that's true, because I know I had a conversation a couple weeks ago, and I was talking about, you know, victims of black
Dr.
females
Trey,
having sex with
I wanted to make sure we had time to get in the other questions. If you want to save your, if it's an anecdote, and just make sure we get our questions in, then we can make time for that too. Is that cool?
Okay, well, it wasn't a question. It was just I was accused of having sex with white people, and it was crazy.
Join the club, buddy. Join the club. Tiger Woods, OJ, long list, buddy. Not special.
Yeah, so that's it. That's it. It was just, that's it. Never mind.
Right. 41510.com. Dr. Trav, person who is responsible for the counter-racist T-shirts with the cows. Dr. Trav, 41510.com. Dr. Reed, and then we'll get Justice's questions. Excuse me, I said Dr. Reed. Sorry about that. Mr. Scotty Reed, Black Talk Radio Network. Mr. Reed, your line should be open.
Thank you for taking my call. Greetings to everyone that's on the lines. Greetings to the guests. My question for you is, I guess first I have to ask the question of whether or not you have seen Spook, the spook who sat by the door. There's a scene in there where sex is used by a black female to gather information in counterintelligence. So how would you view, or would you be agreeable to black females using sex as a weapon against the enemy?
Only if she refused to have it. In other words, withhold the sex. That's the only way we'll be effective at anything, is to withhold the sex. We're supposed to withhold the sex away from black males when he's not right.
Okay, let me rephrase. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Let me rephrase. I don't think you understood me. Let me use a real-world example. Marion Barry, former mayor of Washington, D.C., who was set up, and they used a black female with, I don't know if they had sex or not, but they secretly recorded Marion Barry using drugs with this black female. I'm pretty sure sex was involved, but what about flipping the script? Would it be acceptable for a black female to have sex in such a manner with a white male who is in a position of authority in order to gather intelligence or pull another operation just like they did to Marion Barry. Am I clear now on what I'm asking?
Yeah. And I said withhold the sex. No, it's not acceptable.
Okay, that was my question.
Sex. Yes, not acceptable.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Scotty Reed, founder of the Black Talk Radio Network. I was thinking when I heard that, with, I think Dr. Wellesley, the term she uses is fondling fathers, with all of the rolling around in the bushes and back seats of cars and beds and everywhere else that black people have been doing with powerful white people. If we haven't got that information by now, it's not going to happen with the bedroom thing. That would be my guess.
Right.
Let's see, Justice. If you have some more questions, your line should be open. Justice, feel free. Make sure she's still on with us. Justice. She might have got disconnected.
Hello?
Oh, okay, we can hear you. I can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay. Why did you name the title of your book Pieces of a Puzzle, and what does that title mean?
Well, Pieces of a Puzzle came about because it was like when I interviewed the black females, it was a struggle there first. And it was like, and black females were talking riddles, and you just like, you had to really, they wasn't being direct with me, and they was talking in riddles, and just like you had to put all the pieces together. It was not, these interviews were painstaking, I had to basically tell them they wasn't going to talk to me unless I told them my experience, my story. So it was a thing that we had to come to agreement. I told them about my experience, and then they told me about theirs. But it was still like putting pieces of a puzzle together, because he was talking, and some of them we have been abused. So we kind of repeat what we're saying and talking around it, avoiding it, not really wanting to tell me the truth. So, it was not easy to do these interviews with the black females. It was not easy at all. And so this is how the title came up, because everything was like a puzzle. I had to put it together, talking between the lines, avoiding things like that. So that's how the title came about. It was like pieces of a puzzle that you had to put together to really come up with a clear picture. Only question. You have another question?
Yeah. What do you think will take to destroy or eliminate the system of racism, white supremacy as soon as possible?
What you said? What was that again?
What do you think will take to eliminate the system of racism, white supremacy as soon as possible?
Well, I don't think nothing's going to take, it's not going to happen that fast. Remember, you're talking about people who are being abused. So you're talking about people who are being mentally abused behind this, and you're talking about people who still not talking about it. But it'll slowly go away. The more people talk about it, the closer and closer that we come to an end. The closer and closer we come to an end. Okay, but the sex thing has got to end. For our own mental health and stability, it has to end. So it's not, we got to end it for ourselves, for our children, because of the mental effect that it has on us. So we have a lot at stake here, too. And I'm talking about black people. We have to end it, do the best we can. I'm not saying we're going to be able to end it, because like I said, we need white people. White people got to produce justice. But it's nothing that's going to probably end quickly. And I know, the generation wants things to happen real fast, but it's not going to happen fast. It's been taking a long time as it is. But the more we stay out of the bed with them, the more things will start collapsing. But don't think that for once that they're going to just give up, on us that easy now. Okay? I'm not saying that they're going to just not going to do nothing, but they can affect a large number of black people. I can't affect a large number of black people like they can with their television. They can affect a large number of black people and get a large number of black people to go along with them. I'm not as powerful. I'm not powerful like they are with the black people. Okay? I know that's why I say it won't happen overnight. Because they can influence more. Black people don't even listen to other black people. Recently I wasn't able to get, my enemies were black females who didn't want me to talk about this issue, who don't want me to bring this issue up. So my influence is very limited. Hello?
I am so sorry. My microphone is really, doing not so good. Yeah. Thank you for answering my questions. And thank you for coming on this program.
Thank you, too.
And hopefully that you can come back on. Thank you. Gus, go right ahead.
Thank you, too.
Context of White Supremacy. If you're listening, I know we got disconnected briefly. Should be back if you're listening online. For the people on the phone, you should be A-okay. Folks online, you should be fine now, too, because we're up and rolling. I will get the hand. Let's see, the person that called in, 9776, last four digits, 9776. Your line should be open.
Okay, great. Thank you. So this is my first time calling in and listening to you guys. I was told about this, and I'm really trying to figure out what's going on here, because this conversation, though it's really, really informative, I feel somewhat lost because, this is not conversations I particularly partake in. For the simple fact that, racism and white supremacy, huge major issue. No one is really talking about it. So it's great to hear that there are communities that are making effort to reach and connect with one another from different corners of the state. So I'm really happy to be listening in to you guys tonight. But the purpose of my call is to, I want to use a real life example right now, because there's a situation that I may get involved in, but need some sort of advice in how to address it without coming off as a racist. I know being a minority, I can't be racist because I am a victim of racism, but I have a friend of mine who has dated black men all her life. She is now 27 years old, and all of a sudden she developed this, I don't want to say fetish, but she's developed this thing for white men. And now all of a sudden, she's all about white men. And I don't know if it's her experiences throughout the years that has led her to this point, or what has changed in her character that has made her develop this preference. So, I've been wanting to have a conversation about her in regards to white men's attraction towards her. She's a beautiful woman, Asian, Cape Verdean, black, white. I can understand why any male would be attracted to her. But I just don't understand if he sees her as a sexual icon or if there's real, genuine interest in her. So in framing this around the context of white supremacy and how white males view a lot of black female, what sort of, how can you, like, encourage me to have a conversation with her around this issue? Well, it may not be an issue to her, but I see it as an issue without making her feel uncomfortable and coming off very defensive, or me coming off at her as passing judgment. I don't know if I make any sense at all.
Mhm. Well, let me ask you a question. Are you white?
Am I white?
Mhm.
I am not. But I've dated white men in the past.
You dated white men in the past?
Yes, I have.
Okay. Is it something that you're willing to talk about?
Yeah, I don't mind.
Mhm. Okay.
Well, so did you want to? Did you want me to talk about it?
I was just asking you, was it something that you're willing to talk about?
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind talking about it at all. I mean, I went on one date with this white guy who I thought was really handsome, and he turned out to be a pothead, and I wasn't really attracted to his lifestyle, and that's why we didn't proceed any further. But I've never been, like, in any sexual relationship with any white male, but I'm not against interracial relationships.
Yeah. Well, that normally is what's been said, too. When I go to that bedroom, we find out that I've never been with a white man when it comes to that bedroom, because we don't want to talk about what happened in the bedroom.
Mm-hmm.
Are you willing to talk about what's happening in the bedroom?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, though, he was a conscious white guy. I mean, he could deny his white privileges, and it may sound funny to me to make such an analysis, but he was like, I know this is weird, but he was like a white guy who identified as a Rastafarian. I know that sounds really goofy, but that was his lifestyle. And one thing he said to me on our first date, because of the way I conducted myself, he was asking me if I had royalty in my family. I don't know if that was his way to see how far he could take things with me, but it was like, oh, do you have royalty in your family? I'm like, well, my roots are in Africa, and when they shipped my family to Haiti, I don't know where they took me from. So I may not, I don't know, but I do see myself as a royal princess.
Okay. Well, we are interested in what's important and constructive. We want to know exactly what happened in the bedroom.
It never got to that point. It was not. Yeah, it never got to that point.
That subject is still kind of closed.
I mean, if women, black, white, Asian, understood the value of their body and sees it as a temple, I guess this is speaking from my Christian background, you would know, you would assess much more before you allow a man to, to enter, this temple. So, whether you're black or white, like, if we're going to get intimate, I'm really going to make sure it's something I'm sure about. I need to make sure that there is a deeper connection and not just a connection that's going to form, upon penetration. So I don't want to get very vulgar here, but if we as women knew the value of our body, like, those who don't take us seriously, those that are just looking for a quickie, those are just looking for a release, wouldn't take us for granted. They would appreciate us and treat us and hold us to the outermost value that we hold ourselves and God holds us to.
Yeah, well, if white men really loved us, they would end white supremacy. That's one way if they could show that they really, really love us. They would end white supremacy. They would have to do something. We expect black males to do something. So I'm saying that if the white men really, really love us, they would end racism, white supremacy. And we should say that if you love me, you should end racism, white supremacy, and produce justice.
But
so everybody so that we can have peace. Mm-hmm. If you really, really love me.
But is white supremacy
Get them
not
to do something.
Maybe I don't really understand the term white supremacy, and in fact I disagree with my boyfriend oftentimes around that topic because I don't know if it's a word that I don't understand. Maybe that's what it is. But is white supremacy not a system? So an individual may make a decision, based on. Anyways, racism is ignorant. Race in itself is it's a social construct. So like, if you understand that there is not much difference between, your brother from Africa and your brother from Guyana and your brother here in the United States, then, you're at a point where you're ready to say, hey, you know what, we're just the same kind of people. We just look different. So once you accept that and acknowledge that,
if anyone is ignorant about racism, it's black people.
Sound effect. I had a cringe moment. White people are not ignorant about racism. The problem is not that racists are ignorant. That is like blasphemy. I had to stop for a moment. I wanted to ask one question. You said this white man, so-called Rastafarian, that he asked you if you had royalty in your family. You gave your response. What did he say when you gave your response about, royalty and going back to Africa?
It was a moment of silence because I didn't want to speak after I responded. I wanted him to think about what he said. Right? So when he asked me if I have royalty in my family, I said, I think so. But you know what? I am not sure because when they took me from Africa and brought me to Haiti, like, I lost touch, with my ancestors. So I can trace my roots as far back as Haiti, but I don't know if there was royalty in my family. But if you sense that, then that's probably the spirit speaking to you,
So there was a moment of silence, and he said...
Oh, he said, and then we just, what was it? Yeah, I'm pretty sure we shifted gear then because I didn't talk much about it after that. Sounds like you're thinking about something. Go ahead. Take me there.
Racism, white supremacy. If you don't understand white people, you don't understand racism. If you don't understand racism, white supremacy, what it is, how it works, everything else you understand will only confuse you. Although I am going to start saying the one I said first, I'm going to start saying that regularly to make it more explicit what I think it is. If you don't understand white people, you don't understand racism. Did you have a question, the caller? We had someone else who actually did have a question. Did you have a question, caller?
Yeah, my question my question to you was, how do I have a constructive conversation with this friend who is all of a sudden so attracted to white men and wants nothing to do? I can't say she wants nothing to do with black men, but all of a sudden she's no longer into black men and has this preference for white male. How can I have a conversation with her to make her make her more aware and conscientious of her choices?
You can start by telling her your story and being honest with yourself and her about your experience with white men. You can start there.
Okay, because like my experience. Yeah, I mean, again, my experience was that one date, where there was it wasn't like, ooh, I love white men, I want to marry a white guy. Like, it was just like, hey, I thought he was a nice guy, and I wanted to, see what was in his head. And we had one date, and I wasn't into his lifestyle, and that was that. So I don't think I have an experience that would really, that would connect with her. So I'm just trying to figure out how can I have a conversation with this friend to make her more aware of, you know, like, tell her, like, you know what, this white guy may really be interested in you, but it could be just a sex thing, you know? I don't know. I don't know, and that's why I'm asking.
Well, the way black females conduct themselves with me is I had to tell them my story. I had to tell them the truth about me before they would really listen. Because I admitted to having sexual intercourse with the white man, and I told the black females exactly what went on in that bedroom, and then they told me what went on. That's what the book is all about. I would say start with the book, but I said start with your story. It's something you're not saying to us about what really went on with your experience with a white man. How are you against them? For what reason? You know what I'm saying? So I said start with your story, but you got to be honest and open, and you got to tell it all, tell every little detail. But if nothing happened and whatever, you know, it's nothing for you to tell. It's nothing for you to be able to persuade her. The way I talked is I told my story to the other black females. I told them what happened with my experience with white men, and then they listened to me. After I told them, but they wasn't going to listen unless I told them my experience. And that's how I even started writing the book. I started the book because a black female told me to tell my story, and that's how I started telling my story. You can always get the book and read the book, and it's at Amazon.com.
Okay. I guess I will be a good.
Craigslist.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
I want to get our next caller. I thought that was a real important point that Ms. Tate pointed out with the female who just dialed in. It sounded as if you wanted information on how to talk to this non-white female about why she shouldn't be sexually involved with a white person. Why is that something that you want to do? Like, that would be the question. Like, if whatever information or however you want to explain this to her, you should already have thought this through yourself. Like, how did you even get to that point of wanting to do this? Like, what is it based on? If you don't have any bad experiences with white men, then how did you come to the conclusion that this is something that she should think twice about doing?
Am I still on the phone?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, okay. I mean, like I said, I'm not against race. I'm not against interracial relationships. So
why should she think twice if she's on this kick and she's decided she wants to date white guys? So what?
You know, it's a conversation that kind of started off on Instagram with, you know, comments that was exchanged, and her responses sounded as if there might be a deeper issue going on. I mean, she has a child that is 7, 8 years old now. And she's been with this guy since she was in high school. So she's been tied to, you know, her baby's father for a really long time. And I'm trying to I think there might have been something that happened where all of a sudden she's developed this preference. So my whole conversation around this is to let her know, like, you know, you may have given your heart, body, and mind to this guy and things didn't work out, but that's not the end, you know? So if all of a sudden you're going to shut all brothers out because of that one experience with this guy who you spent, you know, 10 years of your life with, like, it's still, you can't still, like, you know, label all brothers into that one category. So I don't even know where I want to take this conversation, and that's why I was looking for some context to put it into and just, like, make it a conversation where I wasn't coming off as if I was passing judgment or making decisions for her.
Interesting. I want to go ahead and get our next caller. Fascinating. So many things happen in the bedroom that have huge ramifications on how we think and what we choose to do. Very important subject matter. I too feel like we're missing some puzzle pieces, Ms. Tate. LBM, your line should be open. LBM.
Gus?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Yeah, Okay, I'll just say this. I have a few things I want to say, but I just want to make this one point. I think that not only do we need to stay out of their beds, we need to keep them out of our beds as well. And I'm thinking about that in terms of media, and specifically pornography, because from what I'm understanding from talking to a lot of young ladies, we have a number of black males that are enamored with white folks' pornography, and they're bringing that into the bedroom and somehow convincing black women that if they're not down to do all of these perverse things, that somehow that makes them inadequate. So I'm saying stay out of their beds, but also keep them out of ours, because it seems to me that black women are being abused by all whom they come in contact with. In terms of this media influence, even on our relationships, I think we have to remember that white folk by nature are perverse. And I think that if we get into some of Mwalimu K. Barudi's literature, that we could see that just by nature their history is one of perversion. So when we're watching them on the TV and in these films, and again, with this pornography, it's very difficult to take this stuff in on a regular basis and not be affected by it. But in terms of the media thing, I wanted to ask Miss Tate, since she was really strong about the television, which I can agree with. What was it? What were you seeing on television, on media, that attracted you to a white male?
Well, I think it was not just media. I think for me, I was attracted to I think they were singers, the Wham. I think his name was Wham. They called him Wham and Boy George. When I was coming up, it was Boy George and Wham. So these were singers, and they had the long hair and the, so that was, I think that got me into the media and being involved with a white man. And too, it was around that time when they were singers and stuff, and they were on TV and things like that, and that kind of got to me mentally.
Okay, so I'm almost sure it was the case with Wham as well, but I know for sure that Boy George was sexually perverse, and so I'm real interested to know how you were attracted to white men through him in particular.
Well, it had something to do with, even the females talked about the hair and the long hair and the things like that, because the white man I was involved with did have long hair. And I think at the point in time that I described him as looking like Jesus.
Good Lord.
Looking like Jesus. And I didn't think Jesus would hurt me.
Lord, I don't think you.
And I called him the white Jesus in my chapter, in chapter 1. I called him the white Jesus. And I got, I didn't think Jesus would hurt me. But see, again, I was young, much younger than I am now, but I was young, and I was fascinated. Okay, and then they had them on television and that type of thing. But like I said, he looked like Jesus to me, really. Oh, God. The white Jesus.
They said that about the white pedophile in England just this week, Jimmy Savile. They just said that about him with the hair and everything. They said he was like Jesus. He could do no wrong. And there are estimates that he molested anywhere from 500 to 2,000 children. They said the same thing.
Am I sexually attracted to underage boys?
Did you have any other questions, LBM? Is that going to do it?
I'm a little flabbergasted. I'm a little, woo! I'm a little floored with that one. I don't know. As someone who just was never had that attraction and actually grew up being repulsed by the thought of being with one of them, I can't even really get next to that. But I do want to reiterate the point of staying away from white folks pornography. I think it's a problem. And, we need to stay out of their beds and keep them out of ours as well. Thanks, Gus. Thank you, Ms. Tate.
Excellent point.
Thank you.
The racist pornography. Excellent point.
Yeah.
All forms of racist white entertainment, probably dangerous to your well-being as a non-white person. I think I don't see any other hands. Should be good. I'll just check in. Pam, did you have anything else since you were the one who was responsible? Did you have anything you wanted to get in before we wrap up?
No, but I got the same impression. I think that the evidence speaks for itself that we're not comfortable talking about it. So, no, I didn't have anything else to add.
Right on.
Yes, we are not. That is the truth. We are still a conversation that is still hard for us to break. That's why I say you can't. I told the young lady that you can't expect stuff to happen overnight.
And one thing too, we are permanently stamped. I think a lot of black women. I'll just speak for myself. A lot of just knowing that other people know that you've had sex with a white male, that is a thing that can totally trash your reputation. We're very much aware that our sexuality is a direct statement to a lot of people about everything that we are. Whereas men can do what they do, and it does not necessarily follow them. But black women can be immediately trashed and discarded because of our sexual history. And I think that's a practical side of not talking about it. Not necessarily a correct side, but a very practical side.
Yes, it is. It's just something that, but the book has been written, so it's not much more. I did the painstaking stuff. The book has been written. At least we can read. And like I said, we got to heal ourselves also too. So the book is written for healing purposes also. Okay. So we do need to heal it. We need to be honest with ourselves because we can't keep it inside. So we need to be able to identify. We will be able to identify, should I say, with one of the females in the book. One of our stories that we read is gonna strike up because we have to get this stuff out of our brain because we're holding it and we're not supposed to hold it. Yeah. We have to clear it. Clear our minds. Okay? So there's no excuse. We do need to clear our minds of it. We can't hold it.
I agree. I think your book is very healing. And I would just like to say that no one should use this information as a weapon because we are all victims of white supremacy and we all have our moments where we were victimized and we didn't do anything about it. We didn't know what to do about it. So none of us should throw stones at each other about anything that has to do with us being victimized by white supremacy or white people. We have to have empathy for victims, not one-upmanship. That's the only thing I would like to add.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, it is a healing. And I had to heal myself. So the way I healed myself, and it's not a total healing because racism still exists. But the way I started was just putting it down on paper. I put mine on paper. I got it out of me. And I told every little detail to get every little inch of it out of me. And I started with a book, and it took me to get all that out. It was about 400 pages. But I brought along other black females, And that was painful to get them to talk. It was not easy for me to get them to talk, but after we talked, they was glad that I did talk to them about that because they were able to clear their minds. Because they didn't hold it in. They had me to talk to. And I was just basically asking questions, but it's still, they had to relive it, though. They did have to relive it. But see, that's what they tell you when you go to the therapy, when you with a psychiatrist or a psychologist. You do have to relive it in order to clear it. Right. So the book is a healer. You're going to relive it because somebody in there is your story. You're going to find your story in among those 15 black females. But at least we got it out. At least me and the 15 black females got that out. They talked to me about it. I talked to them about it, and we let it go. And we moving on. But to hold it in is dangerous to our mental health.
Yes.
Context of White Supremacy. The book again, Pieces of a Puzzle. You can get it Craigslist, Amazon. If you get the book, you should write a review. I have been told, I think one of the people that called in yesterday when they were talking about the lead-in to the program, they were saying that a lot of the reviews that they saw, it seemed like it was from white people or from black people who were having sex with white people. And they were very upset about the book and were talking bad about it. So that's one thing you can do to help work against racism, white supremacy. Write a review. If you think it has constructive information, if it helps you get a better grasp on what's happening under the system of white supremacy, write a review. That will be on my to-do list. Get that done this week, writing a review. I'll post it on Amazon.com. I'll put it on my blog as well just to help get the word out so more people can get this information. I think it will go a long way to help clearing up confusion, replacing white supremacy with justice. Definitely hope we can get Ms. Tate back on the program. I hope it's been a constructive investment of your Sunday evening. Really was a treat to have you on the program. I'm so glad Pam stayed on the job to get the contact information so that we could have you as a guest. And if you would be interested, we would definitely be in touch to have you back on the program soon.
All right. Well, thank you. I enjoyed myself. Thank you.
Pleasure was ours. Take excellent care and enjoy the rest of your evening, Ms. Tate.
Okay. Thank you. You too now. Bye-bye.
Good evening.
Bye.
Context of White Supremacy. Reneathia Tate. Reneathia Tate, Pieces of a Puzzle. We had someone dialed in. Wait until the last minute. People wait until the last minute. I didn't see somebody dialed in from last four digits 6151. Somebody had just dialed in with a hand. I didn't see. Wait until the last minute, so I say that pretty regularly. Don't wait till the last minute. We'll take a quick commercial. If the person that just dialed in, if you just want to get your question out, at least it'll be on the record. And I meant that. Hopefully we can get Ms. Tate back on the program, and we'll be sure to see if we can get her response when she comes back to visit us again. As I said, we'll take a quick commercial break. And we'll be right back, and I will be sure to get your comment. And Mr. Reed, he emailed a comment. He called in and asked his question. He just had a follow-up on the question that he asked, so I'm going to make sure that I include his additional thoughts around his question from Mr. Scotty Reed, Black Talk Radio Network. Commercial, we'll be right back.
RacismDaily.com, your number one source for global news reports on race, racism, and overt actions of white supremacy. From Asia to the Americas, to Europe, to Australia, to Africa, racism is not a thing of the past. It is our current reality. Be informed. Be globally informed. You should be the first to know. RacismDaily.com, RacismDaily.com, RacismDaily.com.
Is racism hurting you? On issues of race, are you unable to speak, think, and act with clarity and confidence? Are you tired of laughing when nothing is funny, smiling when you are not happy, agreeing when you really disagree? At counterracism.com, you can learn specific strategies and techniques to counter the behaviors of the people who practice racism in all areas of activity, using words correctly, following counter-racist logic, even counter-racist science projects designed to reveal what racism is, how it works, and how to counter it. The open source code writing format allows you to pick and choose from a variety of counter-racist suggestions so you can produce the code that works for you. Stop by counterracism.com today and help replace racism with justice.
That's counter-racism.com.
Do you need a one-stop shop for all of your multimedia needs? Triumphant Multimedia is a skilled team of professionals with a passion for great marketing and chic design. Our specialties include consulting, brand development, copywriting, and creative graphic design that's second to none. We also offer photography, photo retouching, videography, and video editing. At Triumphant Multimedia, our goal is to provide highly effective creative solutions built to suit any individual need or budget. Give us a call at 678-732-8067 or check us out online at trimultimedia.com.
Hi everyone, welcome. This is Justice with the C.O.W.S radio program. If you want to learn about, understand, and counter racism, white supremacy, be sure not to miss a C.O.W.S episode. We keep them jammed, packed with constructive information to sharpen your use of words to help eliminate the system of racism, white supremacy, ASAP. Also, to be able to invest in my counter-racist efforts, co-hosting the C.O.W.S radio program, please visit my blog, justdojustice.blogspot.com.
You're just saying just buckets and buckets of words.
I got an uncle real crazy. My Uncle B, 55 years old, hates white people, married to a white lady. And he's sitting around going, these crackers ain't shit, except for Susan. And he tried to explain the whole thing to me one day, say, yeah, I got a white wife, I love her, she loved me, that's all that matter. But I tell you this, if the revolution ever come, I'll kill her first. Just to show these crackers I mean business. Motherfucking cracker ass, motherfucking cracker. Shit cracker, motherfucker. Hey, hi, honey. Motherfucking cracker, I'll kill my cracker kids too.
Context of white supremacy. The caller that just dialed in, I will get your hand. I just wanted to share Mr. Reed's comments. I think he's still listening. He wrote in his question that he asked on today's broadcast was about, could sex be used as a weapon? And he'd been in the context, if it's a black person, if it's a powerful white person, and this white person wants to have sex with this black person, could they do that so that they would be in position to either get information or to do things to harm that white person that would work against racism, white supremacy? He asked that question. The folks that are on the line, if you can keep the volume down. So, yeah, that was his question. Ms. Tate responded, and I gave my response as well. And he wrote in, this is what he said. He said, on the subject of black females having sex with white men, my question was not fully understood, but I did not want to take up a lot of time clarifying myself. I did not mean black females having sex in terms of learning anything about white supremacy that we don't already know. I meant in terms of warfare. Let's say there is a senator that likes to have sex with black females on the down low, and we want legislation introduced that we have written. We send a black female after him, and we are able to film or record audio of them in a compromising position, just like they did to Marion Barry. I guess it could still be done without the female actually having intercourse. But that is how I am thinking of it in terms of warfare. Did you hear about the State Department was doing that to the UN diplomats? It came out through WikiLeaks. They used this information to extort the diplomats to vote how they wanted them to vote in the UN Assembly. While I do not disagree with the guest's premise, I just think it would take several lifetimes before you could convince non-white females to stop having sex with white men. Mr. Scotty Reed, founder, Black Talk Radio Network. And like I think I did ask his permission. He said I could share. I think he's still listening. All good. My thoughts, and I could be wrong. I'm a victim of racism too. But my thoughts, it would seem, if that was going to go down, like if we use that scenario, like a senator or a diplomat or something, for that to go down, it seems like you would still need the help of white people. Like if you do that and you record it, and to make this a big news story, like CNN, MSNBC, BBC, for this to become a big news story, you would have to get some white people to co-sign on this and say, yes, this is something that will air. This is something that we'll make a big deal about. If white people don't choose to do that, then you just had a black person compromise themselves sexually for nothing. I just don't think that is going to work out. I think, as she said, the weapon is to withhold the sex. I think for a lot of non-white people, if you don't understand racism, haven't thought about it, maybe especially I would say if you haven't talked to white people around this issue about not having sex between white people and non-white people, I mean, whoa. I have seen white people cry, go into hysterics around this issue when non-white people are logical. Hey, let's not put the cart before the horse. We got problems. Let's solve our problems before we get to the bedroom. When non-white people start thinking like that, white people get real uncodified. I have seen this consistently. So my view would be, no, even under those circumstances, we just don't need to be in bed with white people just too many times. It doesn't work out for the non-white person. It ends up being to our detriment, strengthening the system of white supremacy. That would be my view. Anyway, the person that dialed in, last four digits, 6151. Sorry I missed your call. If I had seen it earlier, I would have, if you had dialed in earlier, I would have got your hand. Did you want to go ahead and ask your question or share? Last four digits, 6151. 6151, are you there?
Yeah, sorry about that. But yeah, I was waiting because I wanted to, kind of hear everything and digest and just really, I wanted to listen and kind of, like I said, learn. But I had a question that anybody can answer, and there was a question about they were making a movie about Harriet Tubman, and I heard Eva Longoria, the lady who played Avatar and other movies. She was the princess on Avatar and a lot of other movies. But she's a very prominent actor and known for promoting white on non-white relationships. And could anyone tell me, is there any type of subliminal message and her playing Harriet Tubman, since she like is, like I said, known for always playing roles where she dates a white male. And I heard a radio host that was talking about it. His thing was, or one of his callers' question was, why did they have? I think they said she was mixed race. I never knew that. But they said she was mixed race, and why would a mixed race person play? Why are they getting a lot of mixed race people to play people who are not mixed race? But my question still stands: like, is there any subliminal messages in her playing Harriet Tubman that you could probably think of? Hello?
Yes, I can hear you. This is, Apparently, this is in the Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter movie. I haven't seen that, but apparently that's where this is, I think. Let me just read this, because this is all news. Let me just read what this says. Movie Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter seems to be causing an uproar in Black America. The film casted a biracial woman named Jacqueline Fleming, who was born to a white Danish mother and an African-American father, to portray Harriet Tubman, an African-American abolitionist leader who led many enslaved people to freedom among the Underground Railroad. I don't want to read the whole thing, but so this is saying it was somebody other than Eva Longoria, but I mean, it's the same point.
Okay, I was confused about that. Sorry about that.
No way. I mean, it's still the same general point that they got a non-white person with a white parent to play Harriet Tubman. Same point. Same point. I hadn't heard about this specific incident, but I have been seeing this trend. I think Pam has also talked about this. I would say this is the sort of thing that you do if you know you have in the works a plan where you are going to be doing some population tailoring, meaning killing large numbers of black, dark, non-white people. If you think that's something that you're going to be doing, dramatically reducing their population numbers in a particular area, this might be something that you do. Get people accustomed to not seeing dark complexion folks. So we would even take some people that were black people, and we would just change things because we're great at deception. We will use our entertainment, our books, all areas of people activity, because we have a system. We will change the way that you think about this person so that you will no longer think Harriet Tubman, dark complexion, highly melanated black person. You'll think someone who looks like Eva Longoria, someone who looks like Barack Obama. That is the power of racism, white supremacy. Super powerful. I've heard that before with other people, other famous black people, where they've done the same. The statue, I think Dr. Welsing was talking about that statue of Dr. King that they put in D.C. It's very light. I don't know if it's marble, but it's very, whatever material that they used to construct it, very light. And I think she was even talking about the facial features, how she felt that they had been altered so that it looks less like a highly melanated black person. She was saying the same thing about the statue that they just built in D.C. that was constructed by a non-black person, non-white, non-black person.
Gus, could I add something to that?
Yes, ma'am.
What is happening, this is my opinion, what is happening in the media now is, as Gus described, they are coming at black people in every conceivable direction, from every conceivable direction. It is a signal, a warning to us that they are rewriting our history. When you look at the commercials, what do you see? You see mostly black people or non-white people with a white parent. I watched it go from little girls to women to little boys, girls, and women, to now men, women, girls, and boys. They're putting this imagery in front of us. They're also lightening up. If you notice, they're lightening up the pictures and the the film work of black people to the point where somebody like Toni Braxton is lighter than me, and Toni Braxton is a brown-skinned woman. If you watch it, you'll see they're lightening up, particularly the women, but also the men. And you'll see these complexions. Some of these black people, if they're light-skinned, they look whiter than white people. They're lightening it up because what they really are trying to do is a psychological game with us. It's not even a game. It's a strategy. It's war. They're going to get us to the point, or they're going to try to get us to the point where we're going to turn against other black people because we are so identified with these images as being the better black, the best black. We're going to start conducting a turn-aside. They're trying to provoke anti-black sentiment among black people so that black people will do the work for white people. And you can see it happening now, black people not wanting to be with black people. Black people attacking other black people's facial features. Even when you look in the mirror and the features are just like yours. They're trying to make us identify to the extent where we don't even recognize our own images. And that means if we think these are our real images, we're going to turn against those things that don't look like that. And that means people who are brown-skinned, people who are dark-skinned, people who don't look white, people who don't look like they have a white parent. They are really waging war on us. And the sad thing about it, if you talk to most black people, Even the so-called quote-unquote conscious black person. We sit in front of these TV sets, we don't even notice it. Black women missing from Red Tails or Red Tigers or whatever that was. A lot of us didn't even notice that there were no black women in the movie. With these black men who were going to war, not even a picture of Lena Horne, which is totally anti-historical, because almost every black soldier had a picture of Lena Horne. So what I'm saying is we sit in front of these TV sets, these movie screens, we give them our money, we give them our time and attention, we let our kids sit in front of these TV screens, and we have no idea that while we're watching that, war is being waged on our mind. I'm talking about a terrible war, because as Gus said, not only are we going to turn against each other, they are setting the stage for something. All throughout Texas and these states, they're rewriting history. They're writing us out of the history book what's happened to us. So something is going on, and I would strongly advise black people, stop supporting this madness. Stop buying these DVDs. And the movie Sparkle, you look at it, it's the same thing that I hated about the first Sparkle. The light-skinned women almost looked like they were whiter than white women. The black-skinned or dark-skinned woman pretty much in the background. I don't even know if she had a man. I'm saying black women are sitting here watching ourselves be basically made invisible, and we don't seem to have a problem with it because our minds are so confused. We're not even noticing what's going on. So you got to talk to people. You got to stop just sitting silently. We got to stop being so passive. We are such a passive people. So I'm just saying they're waging war on us through the imagery. And the main goal, I think, is to have black people so much self-hatred and so much group hatred that we will not be able to defend ourselves. Thank you for, because this is a serious problem, thank you for just letting me speak that piece.
Thank you for sharing. There are a lot of people who waited and called in towards the end with a hand up. I'm just going to open the lines up. We did our hour overtime yesterday. I'm not doing an hour overtime today. So I'm just going to open up the lines, and we'll have our 15 minutes to say whatever people want to say on this topic. I will keep my line muted. Oh, Lena Horne, I said we were retiring the cowbell. That is the power of racist man, racist woman. Even if it had been Lena Horne, that too would be a cowbell. That is what I'm talking about. Total domination. It can be corrected. Very powerful system. We got to be truthful about that. So that would be, let's see, Non-Mighty Wick, your line is open. 7808. Last four digits, 7808. Your line is open. Person who called in from a block number, your line is open. I think that's all the hands, I think I got all the hands. If there's any other hands, I will just add to the line. I will go ahead and mute my line. We have 15 minutes.
Yeah, I just wanted to say real quick on anti-blackness. I saw a news report today. It was on King 5 News. It's a news station out here in Seattle area. It said that the anti-blackness is up. Actually, they call it anti-black attitude. They said it's up 3% since 2008. They said it was 48% then. Now it's up 51%. And they're talking about just people. They said they used the term Americans in this area of the world. So anti-blackness up 3%.
That is so clowning. I'm sorry I had to unmute my line just to laugh. That's so. But the seriousness, that correlates with President Obama. That is what I have been saying about him being used to increase racism, white supremacy. That's why I've been saying if he wins, it goes another 4 years, you can expect a spike in anti-blackness if those reports are valid. I'm sorry, I'll mute my line.
And that's the exact correlation that the news report made too. They said since President Obama here or been in office, anti-blackness going up, and they said that'll probably give him some trouble with votes coming up.
That's the reason that he was put in place, and in the first place, I think the biggest reason he was even elected, so-called selected president, and will run again and win again, I believe, is because they're redirecting the angst of white people in our direction. That's where all these anti-black imagery comes from, and this is where Obama's, and we don't even understand that Romney is not going to be a problem. It's going to be President Obama getting reelected. That's going to cause us the most amount of racism. I mean, in terms of us being affected by racism.
Just really briefly to the question that Scotty Reed posed earlier about the so-called sex espionage for black females and white males, I'd just like to point out the historical record of Sally Hemings, who slept with and even gave birth to offspring of one of the most powerful white males in these United States. And it didn't seem to make a difference that she was sleeping with the so-called president at that time. It didn't make a difference in the everyday lives of rank-and-file black people at that point. And I strongly suspect that it would not make a difference in the rank-and-file lives of many black people today if black females began indulging in so-called sexpionage. And the other point I wanted to make was about the actress Zoe Saldana, I believe her name is, who's supposed to be playing Nina Simone. She has another film that was released within the last 2 or 3 years. You could Google her name and the film will come up. It's an ensemble film. And in this film, she's obviously a non-white female. She engages in sex with a white male, and throughout the when the film begins, he supposedly rapes her, and as a result, after he rapes her, she tracks him down and finds out he's a pizza delivery guy, and she lures him back to her house, saying that she has his wallet, and when he gets back to her house, she begs him and pleads with him to rape her again. And it was like she had such a fetish of being raped repeatedly by a white male. And she just seems to be the poster woman for a lot of this white sex behavior, because they constantly pair her with a white male in every movie that she's in.
Hello?
Can I be heard? I'm sorry, whoever.
Yes, sir.
I heard someone say hello. I don't know who that was. It was a female. If you want to, whatever you want to say, you can go ahead and say it.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Gus, for having Reneathia Tate on the show. It really did touch me in a very personal way because I'm young and I'm just trying to study racism, white supremacy, and everything like that. And I just wanted to know, and I'm sorry I called late, but I thought it would be interesting if she had ever come across any black women who had been, like, approached by, like, white women, because I'm in college right now, and there was, like, a white woman at my school that she likes to talk to me a lot, and I noticed that, like, she tends to, like, always want to hug me. Like, even when I don't want to hug her, she's always, like, very physical around me. And I know, like, the one time she had said, oh, why don't we hang out over the weekend? And, like, a big red flag went up to me, and so I just, like, avoided her. So that's what I wish I had time to ask her, but that's all I have to say. Thank you.
That's in the book. She does talk about that. She has one incident where it's a white woman who's engaged in so-called homosexual behavior with a white woman. So that is discussed in the book briefly.
Okay. That would be interesting to read. I'm going to try to get her book and look at it because it was kind of expensive on Amazon, but I definitely want to read it. And I also wanted to say that in regards to Pam talking about, like, the skin lightening, I have to say that I was recently watching the Braxton Family Values, and I almost felt sick the way that they just look like white women. It's like I couldn't even recognize them, and I'm just so glad that my parents did not get me cable, because it's just a constant whitewashing that you get nonstop. I mean, we're really taught to just support the system in just the most slickest of ways, and it's really unfortunate. But I'm going to be muted now. Thank you.
If I could make a comment, I have noticed myself that there seems to be something going on with white people. I'm picking up some vibes here and there. I've picked up a few vibes, not very often from white females. I almost feel like black people are such a target now. It's almost like we're so vulnerable and so exposed that I've noticed white guys are more aggressive, probably toward black men and black women, and white women are getting, this is what I hear from black men, that white women are getting more aggressive, and now I suspect they're also getting aggressive, sexually aggressive toward black women. And so I'm so happy and glad that you are aware enough to have gotten that warning sign, because a lot of young black women are probably not understanding what's going on. As a matter of fact, sometimes you don't have to be young, because there was a lady that I emailed with back and forth for a while, and she told me that this white female had befriended her, and the white female, one time some males supposedly were attacking her daughter or about to attack her. The female ran outside and acted like a big Amazon and got the black men off. And answered the question, I said, did she ever try to hit on you? That's when the black female got enraged and she cut off contact. But I suspect the answer was yes, that they were probably had engaged in some kind of sexual, anti-sexual behavior already, because that's why I think she got so mad at me and cut me off. So I'm glad that you are aware of that.
Oh, yeah, and I knew for sure that something wasn't up, because I remember the one time this girl in particular, like, she wanted to show off to me about her Irish ancestry. So she said, where was I from? And I said, well, you know, my family's from Jamaica, but because of slavery, we don't know. And immediately she got enraged and said, why do black people always talk about slavery? They need to stop bringing it up. And so I just noticed, like, she does have, like, this anti-blackness to her. But, like, she still is very much always trying to hug me. And I'm just like, yeah, I remember one show where they had said the nice white people are the dangerous ones. And I'm really starting to, like, think that. And I'm becoming very suspicious. But this show has really helped me over the summer really understand and find the truth, because they're not going to tell us. So, yeah.
Can I be heard?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
I hope nobody kills me for this, but to LBM's point, she was saying that, you know, black females, they get, you know, they get, you know, abused from everybody, you know what I'm saying? And so I was thinking that would it be good to really, I guess, campaign and tell even the young black females that it's like no sex, like no, it's like, I don't know, celibacy, but just like that's like no sex, like you're not gonna get no, I don't know, but I know when I was coming up, like my uncles and, you know, mostly, you know, would be like, you know, whatever you do, you know what I'm saying, don't ask the black female to you know, this, that, and the other. Or, you know, hearing them talk about, like, black females were more, like, I guess, they were more prude or something, like, shied away, like, they just wouldn't do certain things. And it was like, you know, I'm telling you now, you know, black females are not going to do that. So, I mean, my thinking is that is that something that needs to be heavily told to black, I mean, is that black females looking for love, or I mean, like, what would be the benefit, if any, of just having black females from day one, like, you know, sex is just like it's no sex. Nobody, you're not gonna get no justice from. I mean, it's like everybody's gonna abuse you and do you wrong, and, you know, try to, you know, turn you into a porn star. So celibate sounds like I don't know. What do you guys think?
I think white supremacy would be in trouble in a hurry.
I think more people should do that. I mean, it's such a problem, and it's just like more and more we're just being the targets of everything. I mean, we're not attractive. You know, all the stuff you hear about us having kids out of wedlock and, you know, the abuse that's going on. I mean, I just think that we are going to have to make sacrifices and be focused on replacing this system with justice. There's no other way.
I think that if black females refrain from sexual encounters, I think that it would motivate black males to step up and take more responsibility. I think that it would force them into a position to actually really look at and see how dire the situation is for black females. I think the fact that black females allow black males to continue to engage in sexual encounters with them without them being willing to step up and put themselves in harm's way would just be more constructive in their interactions with them. I think that it promotes a climate in which black males are not going to step up and do what's necessary in terms of their part towards dealing with and addressing this problem. So I think it's constructive.
Am I sexually attracted to underage boys?
Throwaway children, Dr. Welsing's participation in the broadcast.
I think it sounds good, but I think you can't do it in a vacuum. To have, this is my opinion, I think to have that happen, you have to empower these young women from a very early age. I think it's very difficult to take a young woman. I don't say it's impossible because I know quite a few black women that are celibate, and I've been celibate on and off throughout my life, not necessarily voluntarily, but because the alternative was just so much worse than being lonely or being, sexually uninvolved. But I think we can't just throw this at these 20-something-year-olds, but by the time they get that age, so many of them have not had the nurturing. Even Dr. Welsing said that a lot of times sex is just, if a person hasn't gotten enough lap time growing up, then they're probably going to seek that attention, that affection, whatever it is, that need as adults through sex. So we've got these young women out here who are being degraded from day one. From the time they're little girls, they see that they're not adequate, they see that they're not pretty, they see that they're not have any value, and then they come up through these homes. Many times the fathers are absent. Many times they've been sexually abused as children. As young teenagers, they're being basically just fiended upon by men, and I watch it all my life. I watch 10-year-old girls, grown men trying to talk to them. Now they get to a point where they're so needy, and they're watching this television at the same time. I think that's quite a bit to throw at somebody without preparing them for it. I mean, it sounds good in principle, but people have to feel empowered to do that. A lot of these I had a young man tell me, I think he was about 23 years old, super intelligent, brilliant young man from the street. Unfortunately, he didn't have a lot of education, and he was, into the street. But he used to talk to me all the time, and he told me that these girls, now he was bright enough to have figured this out at 23 years old. He said, these girls out here are so messed up, and they're so needy for male attention. He said he could tell them to do anything, and they would do it. And at one particular time, he was talking to this young lady, and he said she's really emotionally disturbed. He said sometimes he would just, I don't know if what he would say to her, but some kind of way he would almost kind of play with her, and then he stopped because he said that he could tell that she was on the breaking point of having a nervous breakdown, and he said that's when he backed off. He said he could have told her to do anything. I think we can't just throw this on the shoulders of these damaged young women. They have to have some nurturing. They have to have some guidance first. We got to start with these young girls, because these young women, a lot of them, and our community, unfortunately, does not address the mental health issues of black females. We talk about black males all the time. We talk about what's happening to black males. We talk about black males going into the penal institution. We talk about saving our black boys. There's very little dialogue about saving black girls. Almost zero dialogue about the mental health of black females. When they go off the lid and they act crazy, we see some in the news, we are very condemning, we're very critical. We never look at it as that, most of us anyway, don't look at this as a victim. So I'm just saying, I think it's a lot to throw on the shoulders of somebody whose only affection is that sexual encounter.
I agree. And I also agree that a lot of the mental health challenges of black females aren't addressed. Terry Williams has a book, I think it's called Black Rain, and she talks about a lot of the unaddressed mental health challenges of black females. I think it's constructive for black females who might be listening to even look into getting that book from the library, because I know it helped me a great deal in dealing with my sisters, my biological sisters, breaking down the walls so that we could begin to have some conversations about many of the unaddressed issues in their lives.
2436, person that dialed in, 2436. There's a lot of background noise. You had a hand up. Did you have anything you wanted to say?
Yes, unfortunately there is a lot of background noise. I can't get my words in the last 15 minutes of the show. Just want to say very constructive. I just want to add in about the lady who was talking about, I guess, the white female who was coming on to her sideways. All I can say is hang out equals liquor and maybe possibly lesbianism. That's all I got to say about that. Thank you for the show. I might check out our book. Greetings, Pam, and the rest of the callers. Very constructive. Thank you.
Right on. Alrighty, we did our 10. We can continue the dialogue. This week we should have several programs, getting back in the groove of things, having my computer back and all that good stuff. We will be broadcasting Thursday. We had a rain date for a program. It's a non-white male. I think I'm saying his name correctly, Khalid Beidon. He'll correct me on Thursday if I'm saying it wrong. He was supposed to be with us last month to discuss. He writes for Al Jazeera. He's also a professor, law professor, but he writes for Al Jazeera, the online news publication, aljazeera.com. And he wrote a piece back in August, and it was titled White Supremacy, the Real Terrorist Threat. And he was talking about how racism, white supremacy, that is the major form of terrorism on the planet, and that's what we should be talking about when we start talking about, oh man, terrorism is a big problem. White people, yes, that's what we should be talking about. That was the first article that I saw, and I was like, oh wow, it'd be great to get this guy on the program. He said he was down, we had a date and everything, he had an emergency, missed the broadcast. The good fortune, he agreed to make up the date and come back and do it this week. But since that time, he wrote another article. This time, he was talking about affirmative action, because that case became big news in between the time when he wrote that first piece and now the rain date. So now we will have even more to discuss about white supremacy, racism this Thursday. I believe he is a non-white, non-black male. I'll get clarification on that as well. I will repost both of the articles that he's done on Al Jazeera. I'll put them on my Facebook page and tweet them so y'all can check out his material. He has quite a bit of posts on Al Jazeera, so you can go through the archives. Friday, part 2, President Obama, study sessions on dreams from my father. Fascinating read. Cowbells. That will be something. We can keep what Ms. Tate had to say, keep that in mind as we continue reading his book. When he starts to talk about his adventures, tragic arrangements, and his siblings, their adventures with these white people. See if that's in the audiobook or if that's something that got redacted, edited out. The compensatory call-in this Saturday. We'll be doing that. And we're doing an election special either way, Tuesday night, November 6th. Not so much the drama of who's going to win and all that, but really forward, as I've been saying the whole time, racist white supremacists, they have plans where they're looking down the road. What is it that we're trying to accomplish? What is it we're trying to get done? What do we think will be the result of all this? How are things going to look in 2016? That's what white people are doing. How does all of this, what are we seeing, play into what we think is going to be unfolding and how to work against that? So that'll be November 6th, a week from Tuesday. I'll update the future programs as well. Thanks again to Pam, doing all the hard work, being just resilient, going online and checking to find Miss Tate's information. I mean, she was on it. She was sending emails, checking websites. She stayed on it, followed up. Years. No exaggeration. This has been going on for years, trying to make this program happen. So again, thank you to Pam. Check out the websites, the books, Trojan Horse Publications, the Interracial Con Game. If you need a book to pair with pieces of a puzzle, definitely the Interracial Con Game would be a nice bookend. Get lots of info on the incorrectness of being in bed with white people at all times and all places. Thank you, everybody, for tuning. Did anybody want to do the prayer before we wrap up? Prayer? Volunteers?
I'm sorry. Gus, could I just remind people to write a review for Miss Tate's book? Because she's got a lot of past her book. And I think that might discourage people from reading it. I think.
Excellent point. I'm going to do that. Y'all can make sure you can hold me to that. I'm going to have that done before Friday. I'm going to write it and put it on my blog and on the Amazon site. And I would encourage that as well. Even if you just do a like. If you really got to be lazy, or if you haven't read the book, if you just heard the program, just go and like. I think they do have a like button there. That would help, because I think a non-white person said that yesterday, that it's been a lot of racist attacking of her book and getting white people to come and write nasty reviews, and confused victims to get them to come write reviews. So definitely, you can like it, or even if you don't have the book and you just want to contribute, if you listen to the program, I read some excerpts from the book, you can just base it off of that, off of what you heard, and write something constructive if you did get some great information today. Thank you for the reminder, Pam.
And also, could you tell them can I just say this too, is if you wouldn't mind, please leave reviews for our books as well, and put a like or anything. We appreciate any kind of support also.
Trojan Horse Publications as well. Mr. Fuller, Dr. Welsing, any non-white people, if you've read their books and they had great info, or you know that they're authors and they're writing, go write a review, hit the like button on Amazon.com. Any volunteers for the prayer before we wrap things up? Prayer?
I will.
Reliable. Thank you, S. Check the Facebook page, facebook.com/The Problem Is White People. If you get confused, if you need the feed to get the archives from iTunes, let me know. It is on iTunes. I'll update the archive link, but it is there. This program will be in the iTunes archives in a few hours. The program from yesterday is already in the iTunes archive. I'll repost the feed and all that. I also will follow up the next few programs, the whole racial hoax in Louisiana, the black female that they're saying that set herself on fire, Shamika Moffett. We'll follow up on that with more information as we get more details from it. Definitely something I'm keeping my eye on. Thank you, everybody, for listening in. Replace white supremacy with justice. S. Take it away.
We thank you, Creator, as your sons and daughters, for giving us another opportunity to come together to share constructive information about the global system of racism and white supremacy. We ask for your continued daily guidance in our lives as we go about our day-to-day activities encountering other victims of the global system of racism and white supremacy. We ask for continued patience and empathy and compassion in dealing with those who may be more confused than ourselves. We ask that you place in our hearts and our minds the correct questions, the correct information that is necessary to go about solving this problem of racism, white supremacy. And we just ask for your continued blessings on the author for this evening's broadcast. We ask that you let each and every person who has heard this broadcast to go and contribute something constructive towards her effort and towards the efforts of all who come onto this show and share information. All these things we ask as your sons and daughters.
Ashe. Context of White Supremacy signing out. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in.